one of the things I'm going to emphasize first about starting to cut your venison is, especially where your wound is, you're going to have quite a bit of bloodshot material. And what we want to do is trim that away and get it off the carcass before we start going to our cutting board. We don't want to get a bunch of blood smear contamination on our cutting board from the wound. And so I'm going to start up here and start trimming away stuff that I know for certain we're not going to want to keep. And if you watch where I'm cutting here, you'll see I'm getting down underneath that bloodshot area. This is part of the exit wound here. Alright, and that's going right in our waste can. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I can see where we got a little dirt here. You don't have to cut away a tremendous amount. You can get under the membranes like that and remove that stuff. I got an entrance wound over here to deal with. Okay, I think we're pretty good now. I'm satisfied with that. But you can see the advantage of what I'm saying. If I threw that bloody shoulder up here on the cutting board, we would deal with that all day and actually contaminate all the rest of our stuff. So I'm going to start by removing the shoulder here. One thing about the shoulder, it isn't attached by a joint, it's only held in place by muscle. So you can go underneath the shoulder blade bone and it will cut it away from the carcass. And we'll put it up on our table here. The first thing you want to find on the shoulder blade, or the shoulder, is the blade bone. And the blade bone has a ridge in it. I'm going to just trim it away so it's easier to see here. And you feel that with your hand, you'll feel the bump just below the point of the shoulder. And so you're going to start by trimming on both sides of that shoulder ridge of that blade bone there. I'm only going about an inch deep with my knife here. Okay, once we've got that started, we can come up from the top here where we finished cutting on the ridge, and your arm bone lays right in here like this. So I'm going to go in until I find the arm bone and ride that arm bone right up to the elbow. If you see there, I cut right along the edge of the arm bone. Okay, now we'll just make sure that's all cut loose completely, right up to where we started our cutting on the ridge of the blade bone. And now, if we take our meat hook, it should pull right away from there, nice and clean. Okay, and we can do pretty much the same thing on the opposite side. Here's the point of our shoulder. I'm going to come down to where we started our cut, make sure it's all completely freed up, and then that will pull as well. A lot of people struggle with that blade bone area and learning where that ridge is, and you can see how cleanly that pulled away. That's a big step and one of the most challenging parts of cutting up your deer. Now I'll go through, this is a ball and socket joint here, and you can, if you look at it, you can see where the joint is. I'm just simply going to cut that off. Now I got my blade bone upside down on the table, go up near the neck and free that meat up there, and that will oftentimes come away nice and clean as well. There we go. Not much left on that. Okay, then to finish out the shoulder, we're just going to follow our front leg bone down and clean off the shank. One thing about shank meat, it doesn't get a lot of respect, and there's some guys I know that will invest hours in trying to get all the cords out of the shank. And really, I usually can quite a bit of venison, and I prefer to use the shanks in canned meat. They really work out well. All the cords that you see here, when they're in the pressure cooker, will melt away, and you end up with a really tender, excellent canned venison. If you're going to do normal roast, and I'll show you how to do that with the other shoulder, it needs about 2.5 to 3 hours in the oven before those things will soften up and pull away from the bone. And you don't want to go real high with your heat, somewhere around 300 degrees. We'll do the next shoulder in the roast one, but there's always a pocket of fat on the outside of the point of the shoulder. We cut this away because in the middle of it is a big old gland, and we certainly don't want that to get ground up with our meat, so that piece has got to go. I'll show you what I mean with the gland there, and I'll go back and sanitize my knife after cutting that. Okay, so to make a shoulder roast, first thing to do is remove the shank. And so if you go on your arm bone and you feel the edge of the elbow here, you cut in just behind that, come down to the bone. Now you have to find this joint, and the best way to do it is to rotate the arm bone, and you'll see where the joint is there. And if you cut right through that, you can usually get that to pop right off there. Okay. So the way that I like to do a bone-in shoulder roast is to make a two-piece roast out of it. And so we'll come through the main part of the joint there. And this is your ball and socket that I took off the other one. But you can locate that by rotating the joint, and you can cut right through it. Okay. Now at this point, and I don't have this with me today, but maybe we'll do a video on this later. What I would do now is to use my Jacquard tenderizer and just go on the side of the bone and poke holes all the way through it. The Jacquard has got 36 little knives that are spring-loaded, and I would do on the other side as well. And when you hit the ridge of the blade bone, well, you won't be able to poke it in, but just get on this side and on this side. When you get that all done, then I would put a rub on this on all four sides. And my favorite one is garlic, salt, and black pepper. Would put it in here on the outside, and it'll penetrate where you've made those holes with that tenderizer. Then I put these two pieces together and tie them with butcher twine. And it's a good Sunday afternoon project. You do that at noon and eat at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. That meat will pull away from that bone with a fork, and you'll just love it. It's a tremendous roast, and a lot of times people don't think about the shoulder as having that value.